Put money back in.
Yes.
Ready? Okay, we'll continue with item number 5, business items, communication, planning, and engagement. Dr. Catalano.
Good evening, Chair Lamb, Vice Chair and members of the board. We have a series of policies before you tonight, 22 policies. One of them is a new school board policy, 7503. The remaining 21 policies are from the North Carolina School Board Association. And these policies are presented from the Nash Board of Education Policy Committee for acceptance of the policies for a first read to sit for 30 days.
Entertain a motion to approve the policy proposal for first read.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Sharp, second by Ms. Bullock. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. Motion carried. Number 2, policy proposal, final approval. Dr. Catalano.
Yes, we have another series of policies that came before the board at our June meeting. One district initiated new policy, one school board association, 10 school board association policy revisions, and one district initiated policy revision. The Nash County Board of Education Policy Committee recommends the acceptance of these policies for final approval. They have sat for 30 days.
Move to approve.
Motion by Ms. Bullock to approve, second by Ms. Chavis. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise.
No.
One
No. Correct.
One no, the no by Mr. Edwards. Motion carried. Policy with name change only.
Okay, so these are policies that the North Carolina School Board Association pulled that have the district name in them within the body of the text of the policy that needed to be changed. Some of these also had the district website as a reference in them that also needed to be changed. The Nash Board of Education Policy Committee requests that the board, number 1, approve the policies for name change only and waive the second reading of these policies as well because of the nature of the revisions.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Bullock, second by Mr. Silver. Policy with name change only. All in favor say aye. All opposed like. Motion carried. Reopening task force.
All right, I will start this conversation. First, I want to just say that this is a draft. I don't believe this is going to be a changing document. I'll put it that way. There are a lot of unknowns in reopening. I'm assuming that the governor Thursday or Friday will give us some guidance as to how we plan on reopening. I felt like it was best if our team went ahead and started meeting to try to figure out how we're going to move forward with reopening schools. Questions like masks, transportation, temperature checks are all in this document. But what I'll do first is share the timeline Then we'll have the departments, the committees, the head of the committees to really kind of share what we have so far. But when I go over this timeline, you'll see that I'll put it, we're in the infant stages of trying to figure out how we're going to reopen. Because I'll be honest with you, this is hard work, because this is a lot of unknowns. Just when you bring up this topic, it seems like every time we speak about it, something else changes, it gets moved. And I know that we need to put safety first, but also kids need to be back in the building. So just want you to know that this is just a draft. I'll start with this timeline. So we were given a document probably June 11th that the CDC, the governor, issued. It morphed from a 12-page document to now 165 pages. It has now been changed again as of yesterday. Some things taken out. So this is hard to fly the airplane when we're building in the sky, what they say. I believe that's the word, but a phrase. So June 18th, we started a conversation about a reopening task force. We got committees, we got chairs of the committees, and we started sending some invites to some members, a few board members. I believe it was our first meeting on Thursday. I appreciate you being there. It was a very good conversation, but it is amazing how once you talk about one subject, another one pops up. It is amazing. That group will probably meet again this week. Based on the meeting today, we met with principals. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we'll be meeting with leadership teams with the principals. On Thursday, we have a parent advisory committee where we want to talk to parents about seeing some of this draft. And then I'm hoping that the complete task force will meet again probably next week to bring everyone back to the table. And I am assuming that August, we're going to have a plan. If you read the document, you'll notice that we just need a plan for A, B, and C. From remote to virtual to regular school. I will say, in my opinion, this is you have to ask yourself, is it doable? Because it gets, Shannon can probably speak to it tonight, but the cost of sanitizers, thermometers, it's a lot to think about. So we're going to go through this draft tonight to kind of show you that we have started the process. But I do want you to know it could change based on Thursday or Friday, or based on uptick in more COVID numbers. But I did want to at least show you that we started this so far. All right, so I think that'll leave Chris, Dr. Catalano, in the surveys from the parents and staff.
Good evening. We did send out a survey the last few weeks of June, and the survey closed on March. Actually, I apologize, it was two surveys, a community survey and then a staff survey. And the survey results are linked in this document. I'm going to try to zoom in so you can see it a little bit better. We had 734 community participants respond to the survey. 726 staff members responded to the survey, and a total of over 1,200, almost 1,300 community comments, and almost 1,800 staff comments. The community feedback on the survey, as you'll see as we go through it, there really was not a clear this is how we need to open school that came out of this survey. There were some really split thoughts along how comfortable people felt. So the first question for the community survey, as well as the staff survey, was based on the information you have now, how comfortable do you think you will be sending your child back to school or going back to school if the health orders allow it? And again, this survey closed about 12 days ago. But at that time, 23% of the respondents, 169 of them, were extremely comfortable. 20.8% or 153 were somewhat comfortable. 25.2 or 185 community members were hesitant and concerned. 21.1% or 155 responses were extremely uncomfortable. And 55 people said that they would not send their child back to school until a vaccine or a treatment could be found. And there were about 17 that either didn't know how they felt or it was not applicable to them. The next question that we asked was around bus transportation, and this was a question that was asked in the community survey, but not in the staff survey. So based on the information they had at the time, how comfortable do they think they would be sending their child to school on a bus if health orders allow it? There were 97 people who responded to the survey who were extremely comfortable. 70 somewhat comfortable. 90 people were hesitant and concerned. The largest group was extremely uncomfortable at 184 people. 66 people said that they would not send their child to school until there was a vaccine. And then 6 said that they did not know how they felt. And the bulk of the responses, 221 people, said that this was not applicable. So either they are car riders anyway, or their students find a different way to get to school, or they just didn't have plans to send their child on the bus. And then the last feedback question on the survey was about the learning model. So the state, as Dr. Ellis mentioned, had put together 3 options or 3 scenarios that we need to plan for. One of them back in the school building. 38.7% of the community respondents said that they wanted students back in the school building. That was 284. A blend of home and school, so some going to school face-to-face and then some remote learning. 208 people wanted that model, or 28.3%. 187 people wanted a fully online model, 25.5%. And you'll see in this last question, the bulk of the responses from the community survey came from parents. There were 644 parent responses. We did have 45 students respond, 29 community members that were not parents, and then 16 other people responded. So that's the community survey responses. And next I have for you the staff survey responses. And you'll see this was very similar to the community responses with just some slight variations. Again, not a clear idea of this is how we need to move forward. 131 people, or 18% in terms of staff members, were extremely comfortable. 208 staff members, or 28.7%, were somewhat comfortable. 277 staff members, or 38.2%, were hesitant and concerned, and 94 were extremely uncomfortable, with 16 didn't know how they felt or it was not applicable to them. And the second question was about the learning model, the same as the community survey. So at this time, if you could choose the learning model for our students next year, would you choose back in the school building? So we had 31.7% of the respondents, or 230, say they wanted students back in the school building. A blend of school and home, that was the biggest group at 297, or 40.9%. 17.6% of the staff responses wanted a fully online model, and about 70 people were not sure or it was not applicable to them. Are there any questions about the surveys before we move on with sharing the plan with you?
Is any of this data broke down by age category, whether they had elementary, middle, or high school kids?
Unfortunately, we did not collect that information. We do have it broken down by teacher or district staff or administrator, but it doesn't drill down further than that.
So when we talked to schools today with principals, that was one of the suggestions we would put forward is you're gonna need to ask the teachers in your building who's gonna feel comfortable. Because you're right, based on age, a lot of metrics we could look at, but because there's an HR form that has to be filled out if you feel like you can't be in the building. So we're thinking that if schools can drive that conversation, we'll at least get each school, how many teachers are gonna be there, how many feel uncomfortable. So do we move from there?
Dr. Ellis,
Yes, ma'am.
following that thought, what do we do if we have a lot of teachers who feel unsafe for whatever reason, whether it's health or age, in coming back to school? Do we think we would be able to get enough substitutes to cover, effective substitutes rather, to cover the classes? What would we do in those instances?
So we have a portion in this draft that kind of shares some of that, Ms. Bullock, but remember if the teacher doesn't feel safe being in the building, they're going to give the option to be remote. So you're still going to have a teacher to be able to be engaged. They just will be remotely with their group. And I think Ms. Privet we have a section on this that she can discuss, but that's also one of the concerns we have, because if you don't feel comfortable, there is another option. That's going to be your online model for that teacher.
Okay, but you still need a
Right,
certain
you would either have to have,
present.
right, you would either have to have that class with somebody in that room of those kids, depending on what model you choose.
Right.
Are we good to go on to the next slide?
I guess.
Okay, this slide has just an overview of what we're going to talk through with you today. There are 3 plans that the state is requiring that all public schools plan for, or 3 scenarios, I guess. Plan A, they're calling minimal social distancing. Essentially, this would be 100% of the students in the building and 100% of the staff in the building. And I'm not going to go through all of the pieces here because our team members are going to talk through those in detail. Plan B is moderate social distancing, and according to the guidelines, that would be open to no more than 50% of the students, and all of the staff would be in the building at that point, or doing instruction, like Dr. Ellis was saying, with online or remote learning. And then Plan C, everyone is in remote learning. The building is closed to students. Our hope is that we would be able to bring all staff back in the building so that they were delivering this remote learning from their classrooms. They would be in there by themselves, or maybe with a teacher assistant, but and that of course is going to be contingent on the executive order at the time. All of this will be, actually. So I'm going to turn things over to Chad Thompson and Melissa Dancy Smith to talk through a little bit more about those 3 plans and what student learning would look like within each one.
So good evening. Wanted to start out tonight talking about the 3 plans, of course, Plan A, Plan B, and Plan C. Today I will talk through the introduction and Plan A, and then Ms. Dancy Smith will take over for Plan B and Plan C. So starting out, Plan A will be a full traditional look as close as a traditional look as we can, with social distancing and following all the safety protocols. So if we would follow Plan A, that means that all teachers and students would be back in the building, of course, following safety precautions in that plan. Each one of these plans tonight will also offer a virtual school option for parents and students who are, if you notice from the data that Dr. Catalano followed, or just showed that some parents would rather their students at this point to they're concerned of their safety. So that option would be available in each of the plans, where students will have an option for a virtual academy option, which would mean full online option, whether it's in Plan A, Plan B, or Plan C. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Nancy Smith. She's going to talk to you about Plan B, which is going to be the model that has the most components. It's a hybrid dealing with some online and some on-site education.
Good evening. As Mr. Thompson shared, Plan B is for all of our pre-K through 12th grade students. And these students will experience a combination of in-person learning in the school building with their teachers and classmates, but they will also have some online experiences through a platform. So the recommendation that we're making is that we follow a track 1 and track 2 model. So that model would look as shown on the screen. Track 1 students would attend Monday through Thursday. Track 2 students will also attend Monday through Thursday. While Track 1 students are in class receiving face-to-face instruction, Track 2 students will be working remotely. And those plans will be interchangeable until we receive guidance from the governor. So if you look at Track 1, those students will be in the building weeks 1, 3, 5, and so on. Students in Track 2 will be in the building weeks 2, 4, 6, and so on. If you would go back for me, Tremaine. In addition to that, we are recommending that all school and district staff return to campus to support and manage a blended model with a combination of in-person and remote learning. In addition to that, a staggered schedule will be implemented the first 20 days of school to allow staff to take care of such things as student orientations, any testing that needs to take place. Please note that pre-K will follow the same guidelines as our K-5 students with a Track 1, Track 2 scenario as well, unless we receive additional guidance from our state regarding early learners. But we have to ensure that with our preschool students, we also follow the 18:2 student-teacher ratio. As Mr. Thompson shared, with all of these models, we will offer our students an opportunity to participate in our Nash County Public Schools virtual academy option. Plan C would be business as usual. We would ensure, Plan C is all remote instruction. And the details of this plan will be provided in our remote learning plan. We will have students who will have all online instruction. However, when we have students who cannot access digital resources, we will ensure that print materials will be made available for these students who need them as developmentally appropriate. Are there any questions?
Okay, we have Mr. Farrow and some of his team that are going to share some information on student health and safety. And many of these health and safety protocols are also going to apply to staff as they return to the building as well. Mr. Farrow?
Good evening, Board of Ed members. The student health and safety portion of the plan focuses on three major areas. We are looking at arrival screenings, campus safety measures, and social emotional learning. Under arrival screenings, as we look at symptom checks, schools will designate 2 entrances as entry points for students to be screened for COVID-19 symptoms. Each entry point would have a minimum of 2 screening teams. All students will have their temperatures checked and will be asked a series of 3 or 4 questions by the screening team. Parents who bring their students to school will have to wait in the car while the students are being screened. Once the student is deemed okay to enter the school, parents may leave the campus at that time. Isolation rooms will be for use of or used to house any students who failed the screening process. Trained staff members, along with the school nurse when possible, will operate these rooms to gather further information from the student and contact parents for the students to be picked up from school. Campus safety measures, mask, face coverings. They are mandatory for students with the exception of students who may have extenuating health circumstances, which may further exacerbate their current health condition. Social distance procedures. When in open spaces such as labs, hallways, and lobbies will maintain social distancing of at least 6 feet apart. Classrooms will be set up in a manner that adheres to the social distancing guidelines. Staff will rearrange furniture, classrooms to maintain social distancing. Minimize the number of students utilizing the restroom at the same time. When in open spaces such as the, excuse me, I already read that part, I'm sorry. Minimize the number of students utilizing the restroom at the same time. And students are encouraged to bring personal water bottles to minimize the use of water fountains. There have been some conversation about whether the water fountains will be available at all. We have not made that decision yet, but we certainly want to, as much as possible, minimize the use of those fountains and ask students when possible to bring water bottles. If schools allows the use of lockers, procedures must be in place to ensure that social distance can be maintained. Managing the COVID-19 exposure. Students with health conditions and those who are at high risk for COVID-19 will be identified and monitored to ensure that their healthcare services are secured. Procedure for reporting COVID-19 on campus is to report any suspected, presumptive, or positive cases to the principal, assistant principal, or school nurse. Contact tracing process will be completed by the school nurse in alignment with our school nursing guidelines and procedures. Nash County Health Department will be notified of any suspected, presumptive, or positive cases of COVID-19 within our school district. FERPA confidentiality should be maintained at all times. School nurses will be available for consultation for health-related needs and develop health plans for students as needed. With our social emotional learning, it is crucial for us at the start of the school year to prioritize addressing social emotional and mental health needs in order to help our students get ready for learning. This pandemic has been stressful for both employees and students. Stress of this nature will invariably increase the levels of fear and anxiety. Everyone reacts differently to these stressful situations. A member of our student support service team will provide mental and emotional well-being resources for students and families. And additionally, mental health resources have been organized and placed on our district's website. At this time, I'm going to ask Mrs. Grant and Mrs. Jeannie Kirk to talk more about the social emotional learning curriculum and resources in school-based mental health.
Thank you, Mr. Farrow. As you mentioned, the importance of prioritizing and addressing the social, emotional, and mental health needs of our staff and our students is going to be critical during our reentry back into school. And really looking at how we can triage to determine where individual students are and what needed supports they need. We started with a district team at the end of last school year and really put out some training to our teachers, some resilience training. We did youth mental health first aid, just really trying to equip them with tools in their toolbox for when we were able to come back to school and really identifying what the needs of the kids are. We are looking at a resiliency curriculum and resources that we are going to be offering to parents and to staff. The team has worked hard, Ms. Kerr has worked hard on developing a resource mapping for our county so that we can easily refer parents and community members and staff to different resources in the community or online that they can assess. We also know, as Mr. Farrow talked about, that students cope with things differently, and we're wanting to really prepare students to recognize and address the fear and anxiety and grief, and for some of them even loss that they've addressed during this, that they've had to deal with during the pandemic. We will also be continuing our school-based mental health services. And also working with some face-to-face services and hopefully increasing some of our telehealth services to be able to provide more services through our student services, psychologists and social workers and our counselors. Ms. Kerr, did you have anything else to add?
The only thing I will add is that when Mr. Farrow and Ms. Grant just talked about the triage and assessment, that we have a multi-tiered approach to the assessment, that we're going to train and equip all the staff members with being able to use a simple inventory to assess students every day that they have contact with them so that they can see warning signs and make referrals as soon as possible to our student support team, so that then student support can do a higher level assessment to go ahead and put some resources in place as soon as we can.
Are there any questions for us? Okay, thank you.
Good evening. This is Angie Miller with our operations team. At this point, we're going to discuss a little bit about school nutrition. With Plan A, our team will be utilizing the cafeteria space. That will be certainly with social distancing and some extra cleaning processes that are in place, as well as hand sanitation stations throughout. And that would be slightly modified from what they've used in the past. Our Plan B would be breakfast and lunches in the classroom. Many of our schools are already doing breakfast in the classroom. Once they arrive, whether it be by bus or by parent, they would go through a sanitation area. They would go through the line. In all cases, we are anticipating them going through the line of the cafeteria. Several reasons for that. One, in many cases, it may be one of the few times they get away from the regular classroom to go to the get up and go to the cafeteria. They'll go through a hand washing station before lunch, go through and get a bagged lunch, go into their classroom, and then there will be a cleaning process to clean up behind themselves in the classroom part. The cafeteria in the mornings, they will go straight there, and those sanitation stations will be set up for them. It will help with instructional time, and it'll also help with them going through the line for teachers not to have to keep up with money and checking off students and keeping up with their meal numbers. Plan C would be very similar to what you guys saw at the very beginning of school, or excuse me, in March, the day after we shut down and we started rolling out our community service plan. And we're not sure exactly all the specific details on that. That will be based on what the federal guidelines are and as they share those with us. Next will be Shannon, and we'll take questions at the end for the maintenance piece.
Mr. Davis, do we have you on the Zoom with us?
He's
Microphone is not been working.
Can you hear me now?
It's like two mics on.
You're with Andrew. Just use her mic. Just go ahead and use yours. Just use her mic.
Sorry about that.
one second.
You're able to hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, all right. We will be installing signage, and my plan A, B, and C are relatively the same based on the number of staff and students we have in the buildings. Signage will be installed throughout the building. Markings on the floors as reminders for social distancing. Safety screens are being installed now at all the front offices. Depending upon what plan we go with, we will be installing them in cafeterias and other high traffic areas. Custodians will be doing enhanced cleaning and sanitizing, and face mask and hand sanitizers will be in place at all facilities depending upon what plan. This time I'll hand it off to Mr. Lentke in transportation.
Good evening. Looking at the three different plans, plans A and B, the safety protocols will be virtually the same. And with that, we'll do cleaning after each run. So the chemicals will dissipate before the next run. Face masks will be required. And with any students who meet the DHHS guidelines for exemption would not have to have that. We'll have hand sanitizers on the bus. And with plan A will be consistent capacity as we're doing now, just with enhanced safety of the students. Plan B will have a reduced capacity of approximately 1 student per seat with the exception of siblings. With that will be extended run times and expenses related to that.
And I'll close with the athletics and extracurricular piece. As it relates to athletics and extracurricular, at this time, we're going to continue with dead period, meaning we are not able to participate up until the day, July the 27th, and or guidance from the governor and the High School Athletic Association. Right now, with the governor's statute and the High School Athletic Association, we cannot use equipment and there will be no contact. I also did a survey with all coaches, paid and volunteer, using feedback from that and a very outstanding group that we plan together to use this date as just one piece to decide what the next steps will look like for athletics, extracurricular, meaning band, chorus, dance. We're on hold at this point till we get further guidance. We're hoping to hear something in the next 2 weeks, and fall sports usually begin August 1st, and we'll get more details from them hopefully in the coming weeks to get our plan. At this time, our team will take any questions that you have.
Remember, have any questions? Thank you for the entire group.
Okay, the the last section that we have is communication, employee health, safety, and support. And so there really, as we were thinking through the details of this plan, 3 items came to mind as things that we really needed to have information on sooner rather than later. So we will be, once the plan has been finalized, getting this information out to, or the draft has been finalized, getting this information out to families so that families could opt for our Nash County Public School Academy, if that was an option that they wanted to, or they were more comfortable with. So getting that application out to families so that they could go ahead and let us know if they weren't planning on coming into the buildings, if they were more comfortable staying at home. We need to know, as Ms. Bullock mentioned, staff who would not be coming back to the building. And so we have worked with Rod Malone on an accommodations form for staff that I'll let Danita talk to you about in just a minute. But staff will need to sooner, again, rather than later, let us know if they're self-identifying as a vulnerable population and are requesting accommodations. And those accommodations could be a couple different things that we have in place, up to remote learning, remote work, and probably handling that Nash County virtual public school remote online instruction. And then the third thing that we really need to know to get an idea of our time, the time of day that we're looking at, and when students would be arriving at school and when we would need to get them on the buses, is how many students would be needing bus transportation, because that's really going to impact what times or how many runs need to be ran, and all of that Mr. Litke just talked through. So those are the initial pieces of communication that we'll get out to families, to let them go ahead and start, and to staff, to let them go ahead and start planning for whatever scenario we have for reopening. All of the protocols that Mr. Farrow shared with you about students will also be followed for staff. So those symptom checks where employees check their temperature and then have those 3 questions that they answer, a process for that will be put in place. Staff and student campus safety measures, I said that will be consistent. We mentioned vulnerable populations. There is an accommodations form, and then leave options, which would include teleworking procedures, and then really being sensitive to our staff that are coming back to work, and knowing that just as we've planned for the social and emotional learning of our students coming back, we need to be sensitive and cognizant of the social and emotional supports that staff are going to need to come back to whatever environment and scenario that we are required to open up with. So Ms. Privet, if you could share your information about anything you'd like to add about accommodations and leave options.
Sure. Good evening. For social and emotional supports for our employees, our EAP has been a great support thus far. They have been seeing our employees throughout this time. They've seen about 43 employees, and over half of them are there for emotional support to get through COVID-19. So our EAP is offering stress management tips, resiliency trainings, or tips on how to have a strong mindset and living in uncertain times. We did receive an accommodation request form from our attorney, Rod Malone, and this form is for anyone in the high-risk category. And high risk, as defined by the CDC, is people who are 65 years or older, people living in a nursing home or long-term care facility, people of all ages with underlying medical conditions. And that pretty much sums it up. With this form, if they are submitting it for a medical condition, they will have to provide medical documentation. And for accommodations, we have, or what we can provide for them is additional or enhanced PPE equipment, such as cloth face coverings, gloves, face shields, making sure that social distancing measures are in place, modifying job responsibilities, modified work schedules, such as staggering the time that they come in, alternate on-site work locations, and remote work if it's available. We do have leave available for our employees during this time. Under the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, there are 2 types of leave that are available. And the first leave that is available is the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act. And all of the qualifying criteria to receive this is for any employee that's subject to a federal, state, or local quarantine or isolation related to COVID-19, if they've been advised by a healthcare provider to self-quarantine, they are experiencing COVID-19 symptoms and seeking a medical diagnosis, if they are caring for an individual who is at risk or has an underlying health condition, if they are caring for a child whose school or place of care is closed due to COVID-19, and any employee that is experiencing any substantial similar condition as specified by the Secretary of Health and Human Services. With this particular leave, the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act, employees can use 2 weeks if they are unable to work or work remotely. The second leave that is available is the Emergency Family Medical Leave Act, and this leave is available to those who do not have childcare. Both forms of leave are available through December 31st, 2020. And if they are not receiving full pay, in some cases, they can use some form of accrued leave to make sure that they get full pay during the times that they are out. Any questions regarding leave or support for employees?
Ms. Pruitt, did you say that expires on December 31st for the leave?
Yes. Our state leave expired on June 15th, 2020, but this federal leave will run through December 31st, 2020.
Ms. Pruitt, are we making sure these employees are aware of this leave, and if so, how?
Yes, employees, well, they're already familiar with the Families First Coronavirus Act because that was in place in March and it's just been extended through December 31st. Information was sent out to principals. We did an all staff email, and we received quite a few employees who applied for it when it became available back in March. When this plan is finalized, we will do the same thing. Send communications out through principals, put it on our website, and send out the all staff email so that all staff will be aware that this leave is available through December 31st.
And will it be in orientation for the new teachers?
We can add it to orientation for new teachers, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
On that employee medical, what's the name of it again? Where's it at? This is another slide, ain't it?
It's not in the
slide. Wasn't there an employee rate on there, like less than 500, more than 500?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Can you repeat the question?
What is the name or the full name of the one that you talked about for employees? The employees what?
There are
What's the name of it? Okay.
first
What are
one
the
is
two?
the first one is the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act. And then
Next one.
the second one is the Emergency Family Medical Leave Act.
Is there something in there about the number of employees that you have for that? Like more than 500 and less than 500?
Yes, that's for any employer that has more than 500 employees, those leave options are available. And we have more than 500 employees.
Okay, so it says more, not less. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other
Any other
questions?
questions? Go ahead, Dr. Caroline.
Okay, so just the last thing, we're really going to be cognizant of continuing ongoing two-way communication, just to make sure that there's not any misinformation out there and ensure that learning can continue regardless of what scenario we're in. And so we will, Danny Plyler is working on getting a new button added to our website, which will go straight to our reopening plan and all of the information that students and staff would need. We are going to have a frequently asked questions section there, and so those leave questions and things like that will be populated on the website on that page. We'll also be sharing any changes or pertinent information through our social media channels and using Blackboard, Connect Ed, and mass notifications to notify parents and the community as well, in addition to all of the communications that Ms. Privet just mentioned. So Dr. Ellis, I'll turn it back over to you for any questions.
So this is so far the draft, which I was saying is not a complete draft whatsoever. You can tell this is it's a heavy lift. It's very easy to create a plan. You copy and paste, but executing a plan like this is going to be tough. So in our business, it's going to fall on the shoulders of administrators and teachers, because we can be real general with our plan, but when it comes to what you do in your building, that's where it's going to affect the most, because everybody's going to have a little bit of difference on what they do. So some of the questions we keep getting is, if a kid shows up or he tests positive for COVID, do we shut the whole school down? Do we shut the district down? So we don't know. So we're going to continue meeting these committees. I'm hoping possibly in our next board meeting, we'll have something to share more concrete, but we'll go from there. So thank you. Do you have any questions?
Just a quick one, and I know we're still in the draft phase of this, but is there at least initially a plan to allow principals to cater this to their school? Or are you trying to roll out something that's pretty uniform across the district?
We wanted to be real general in our plan, and we talked with the principals about, you're going to have to make it school specific. What does entering your building look like? It's going to be different than any other school. Are you going to have check stations? Are you going to have what groups are your A and B groups? So teachers will be able to develop those groups. They would get that list of those kids who need transportation. So it's got to be school centered, because they're going to have that information. But you're right, we're going to give that flexibility to the schools, because they're going to know their population of students.
First thing I want to stress is, as Dr. Ellis said, this is all probably going to change Thursday, Friday when everything's mandated. But I hope that they consider working parents with elementary kids. With unemployment rate like it is, I hope that's considered. And I would like to give a suggestion in reference to if we do have to do some type of virtual or hybrid stuff, that we consider maybe 2 days on and 2 days off 1 week, and then, but that may be mandated as well. But I just want to make a statement there.
If I could share, Dr. Ellis, we have been in contact with our on-site childcare providers, the YMCA and the Boys and Girls Club, and both of them are open to continuing support regardless of what plan we have with a track out type of program or something along those lines. So we are hoping to engage the community to help us help parents who are working parents who do need that support on those off days if we're in that sort of a plan. And so we'll be sharing some more information about that as it becomes finalized.
Thank you.
Dale, you got something you'd like to share with the board?
No, sir, not at this time.
Any other question?
Just help me understand the plan B that I think Ms. Dancy did that. So the track 1 and the track 2. If I am a teacher and I am teaching the student Monday through Thursday, week 1, who's teaching the week 2 kid?
It'd be the same teacher.
So they will be watching that virtually while I'm teaching. I have 50% in the classroom and the other 50% are watching through. And we have all the technology and we have all the pieces to make that happen in their classrooms with cameras and bandwidth and everything. I guess maybe.
I think you need that.
However, that is a good recommendation, and I think that ideally that's what we want. If we want that kind of environment, it's going to cost. And the reason why I say that, it's going to cost. And the reason why I say that is because right now, in most of your classrooms, you do have the interactive panels, but they're the older interactive panels. You're going to need cameras, you're going to need microphones and those kind of things that we're going to have to now install in those classrooms to make those classrooms interactive and as well as remote, if that makes sense. So it's going to take some money to, build that model.
So do we have an idea when we're ready to pull the trigger, how much that's going to cost? And can you get enough cameras? Have you been on Amazon lately trying to buy a camera?
Yeah.
It's tough.
It's tough. It's not even there.
So realistically, is that an option?
Well, I think anything that was delivered in there said that week at home or that week that you're not in class is going to be virtual or going to be online with that class.
It could be supplemental. It could be what you did week 1. Then you're going to come home and do something online. It could be recordings of a teacher's session. I mean, remember, there's a whole bunch of options that a teacher can use. But I mean, that's going to be the issue. We got to figure out with these principals. So what do your teachers want to do? So when I have mine this week, what am I going to do with the week in my building? And what am I going to do with these students who are sitting at home? You're right. There are some systems that want to Zoom recordings. Some want to do live. That is something the school's going to have to figure out, because you're exactly right. Everyone cannot be doing this at the same time. But you can easily record something, push it back down for the next day, and let someone access it. I think about this connectivity, and I go back to what Mr. Edwards talked about. If we could just get teachers back in the building, we've got a lot of this technology that they can at least maneuver through, even with learning packets. At least they'll be in their rooms to be able, they'll have their TAs, they'll have some of that ongoing stuff. And a TA could manage this other group that's home while, the teacher's in the classroom. And there are a lot of, that's why I think, when you go back to what Mr. Dunn said, it's going to be an individual, I think, because your high school is going to look totally than your elementary school. Because my biggest concern is K3. I mean, you're not just going to put them on a computer. So even with class size reduction, you know, there might be a possibility some of those kids could come back, all of them at one time, because you only have an 18 in a class. There's options we're going to start thinking about, because, you know, instead of having teachers in that classroom, have one classroom that all teachers go to and go around and have a safe environment for those kids. Do not let the kids move, let the teachers move. I mean, you know, you start looking at this model and you just keep churning and churning and thinking. We were in one meeting with one school today. They brought up 4 things we didn't even think about. Because when you bring all those partners at that table, you start figuring out, here's something else we think about. So you're right, it's almost, you start figuring out, is this doable? Because, you know, in our world, it's all or nothing sometimes. Either they're not there or they're here. But right, I think the hybrid model is the tougher one of all of them. Because that's just the maneuvering of that, and then you've got kids at home. You're exactly right. You've got kids still sitting at home 1 week. And even if you do 2 days, you still got another group sitting on 2 days. So I think that the hopes of us meeting with the committees this week, especially with the school leadership teams, meet with the parents, start getting that information on everybody's side. Everybody gets to look at it through their lens. And then we can probably narrow something down that I think could be a workable, something workable that we can move forward. Because I'm telling you, kids need to be in the building. We need to educate them, because we have got a gap that is widening. And if you go back to remote, you know what that's going to do? It's going to widen the gap. So if we had to bring certain groups, certain whatever, but we got to figure it out, because they're getting further from line. So that's like I said, it's a draft, because just, you can tell just by your comments and questions, you just keep thinking of something else rolling in.
Sure. Yeah, it is. Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the things that I would say about that is, as a teacher, and I'm not a teacher, a lot of you have been teachers, it's almost like your lesson plan. Each teacher's lesson plan is uniquely different. They cater to their individual students. So all this is just elevate to a next level. And this is where and I like Dr. Galloway, it's a draft. When you start engaging all stakeholders, specifically your principals and teachers, I think you alluded to it, every school is going to be different. Every lesson plan, every classroom is going to be uniquely different. And it's we catered how that teacher wants to set up for the best training of their students. Our role is to hear what you have to say and get whatever input we can. Because this is a tough challenge, but I think we got the admin and the folks is up to that challenge to make these things happen. Our role is just to try to show as much support, give whatever guideline we can, and sort of lobby to give them whatever resources that they need to have.
I think we need for the governor to make the call so our professionals can get to work and do the plan. It's going to benefit most children all the time. Somebody's got to come up with a guidance, and it starts up in Raleigh, so our folks can get to work. You gonna call me tomorrow? You probably would accept my call. That's what he says. Yeah, I'm calling. Mom, I like it. Any other questions?
Carolina? This was for information only. The next item on the agenda is vacant board seat, and this is Dr. Ellis. I'm going to turn that over to you.
So I think we're going to start the process of how this moves forward in the vacancy. I know we had some, this was kind of the timeline we used previously. So I'm going to hand that to you, and you can move forward with that.
Timeline was 10 days. We advertised in the Telegram, Wilson Times, National Graphic, website and district social media that we had an opening on the Board of Education. At the end of that 10 days, we had letters of interest and resumes that were due. And then a day after the letters and resumes were due, we had candidate information provided to board members. So copies were made to board members. A call meeting was placed to narrow the applicants down to 3. Candidates contacted to schedule interview times. About 6 days after that, we had at the call meeting, we had board interviews and selection. And then about a month after the whole process started, the new member was sworn in and seated. That's how the timeline proceeded before. Any questions about the timeline? Anybody object to having it open for 10 days?
I don't think that's in that set, that it has to be.
Yeah.
Do we need 10 days at this point?
I would think so.
I think enough time is it's expired already. I think we need to do the process as quickly as possible.
Not everybody will know about it.
We have not advertised.
10 days ago.
Well, that was the process done. That is.
Whatever we're gonna do, we need to move quickly on it and get it done because that district is without a representative. And I've heard some things from the community, people saying we're not represented, our district's not. So we need to take that seriously and kind of move quickly with that. Vacancy.
According to that, then if we started advertising tomorrow, the July 23rd, that would be the 10 days. The letters of interest should be here. The 24th, the information can be provided to board members. That's a Friday. We can get letters through email or whatever that has been accumulated for those 10 days. Candidates contacted to schedule interviews could be the 27th. That would be a Monday. Could we schedule a call meeting the last week in July? Interview the candidates and select.
What day do you look at this now?
We're looking at the 28th, July 28th, 29th, 30th, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
I know we all doing a financial committee meeting that week. That we go over the financial committee prior to the board meeting, the
August 3rd.
August 3rd, yes.
I was hoping to get it in so August 3rd we could announce.
Yeah.
Announce who the new candidate would be.
We have a policy committee meeting on the 28th. Right, Ms. Bullock?
The policy committee, yes.
And we're going to financial committee on the 30th.
What time is the policy meeting? 5 to 6?
4.
4 to 5?
Normally it should be 4 to 5. Sometimes we run over a little bit, but we can make sure it's over by 5 o'clock if you want to use that day.
That's up to the majority of the board like we did last time. I think we need to come to a consensus tonight.
I think so too.
Today.
Yes.
Yes, I'm good with the 28th.
28th at 6 o'clock? How does that look? Excuse me?
I said the 28th would work.
Okay, so we got 2.
And I'm fine with the 28th, of course.
So that's Donovan, that's Evelyn.
And
Do we need to make
LaShonda.
a motion? Do we need to make a motion, Mr. Chair? that-
I've just seen there's anybody that could not.
I won't do that.
I'm good with the 20.
I got something that evening already.
Can we speak in the mic so we can hear?
Mr. Vincent has something on the 28th.
Now, we're referring to.
What about the other?
Well, you can go to 29th, that Wednesday.
No, she meant other board.
Anybody have any conflict with the 29th?
I really prefer not the 29th, but if that's the majority, then I will.
I'm flexible. I'll make it work.
Yeah, I'm good.
29th is good.
That's what we're gonna do, we got some days to play with that. We need to have everybody selecting a new board member. If everybody,
Meetings, everybody don't count me. You just pick a date and come there.
well, the 29th, everybody said they could be there. Anybody cannot be here the 29th at
So,
6 o'clock.
so let me make sure it's not can be, because it's remote as well. Or is it face panel interview where you have to be here? That was my next question. Will we interview these people remotely? Are they gonna come?
Never had to do that before. I would hope.
I think you would.
What was that?
You can, yeah, I think you can if you want to do that.
To do it remotely.
Well, we still do the policy meeting that way.
If the virus is as high as it is now, I would think remote.
Okay, I'll serve at the pleasure of the board. If everybody wants to go remote, that's fine.
Yep.
So the interviewers will be remote as well?
Yeah.
Yes.
I like to see people eye to eye. I like to see your face. I agree with that, Mr. Shaw. So can we?
To agree with what, Mr. Silver? We couldn't hear all of it.
I agree with Mr. Sharp. He made mention that he liked to see the person come and have a face-to-face interview. And I agree with that. I think that will be my first choice, to have the persons to come. We'll do a face-to-face. And secondly, the remote is fine, but I would prefer a face-to-face interview. That's just me.
I think we should give the candidates an option.
I agree.
I agree.
Well, let me put this on the table, and I'll go ahead and say it. I don't know about anybody else, but I know about me. And I do know that if we are under the same conditions that we are now, I will be joining the meeting remotely. I will not be coming to a face-to-face.
I sort of like what Mr. Business said, give them the option. I hate to ask a new candidate or require them to come face-to-face. And God forbid something were to happen.
Right.
I mean, the option will be safe.
Right.
I agree.
I might like to have an informal motion.
I mean, don't we need a motion containing all of this? I mean, we need a motion for when we're going to run the ad, for the time.
Right.
How we're going to conduct the interview. I mean, can we talk about, because this would be remote, how disjointed that becomes? Are there certain people asking the questions? I know in our packet,
Mr. Lamb,
Yeah.
we're not supposed to have individual meetings on the board meeting, so you should probably, if it was a regular board meeting, we would be doing all this. So we should be doing it now.
Unless they want to share with the entire board.
Yeah, so he didn't want to interrupt you guys. He brought something to attention. And I'm sorry, I didn't know you were sorry. He was scolding, so.
So how should we should discuss how the interview process should go, because it is not easy to follow remote.
Well, why don't we deal, first of all, with the things you just mentioned? So why don't we get a motion to look at our date for the meeting, the 29th, and just move along, so we're not be all not talking the same thing. I'll make a motion that we begin on the 29th. Actually start the advertising tomorrow for 10 days.
Right, let's start.
That's the first thing.
Okay. Let's start July 14th advertising, July 23rd.
Yes.
3 to 10 days. July 24th, letters of, candidates information be given to us, board members. That will be a Friday. Somebody can email us, letters or whatever. July 27th, candidates will be contacting, setting up their personal interview. And that will be set for July 29th, after personal interviews, at 6 o'clock, a special call meeting.
Now, we're going to accept a certain number of candidates.
Well,
we're going to cut off at the first 10 or the first whatever, because if we're not, we don't ever know. It could be 25, 30 people. Probably not, but you never know. It's probably best we just put something on that.
First three you receive is what you're going to take?
No, if we can do it like, y'all else did with the assistant principal. They apply, we just can't do something.
I don't think you can.
10.
What are you all saying?
Some of us suggesting putting a limit on the number of applications to be
No,
accepted.
I can't concur with that. I think every application should be looked at and considered. I'm sorry.
So do
Does
I.
every application get interviewed? I mean,
No.
how do you get it down to your 3 or your 5?
What we've done in the past is that we received all the applications, looked at all of them, and then we decided how many we would interview based on how many applicants we received.
So when you're suggesting that when the 24th, we receive the letters of interest, did each board member select their top 3 or top 5?
That's what I do.
Yeah.
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 Everybody agree to that? That when we get on July 24th, that Friday, we receive all the letters of interest. You can pick your top. What's the magic number? 3 or 5?
3.
Everybody pick their top 3.
3.
And you can send your top 3 into Sarita. And she will send out or schedule the conference time.
All right, can I add one more step to that or suggest one more step to that?
Yes, ma'am.
If each of us pick our top 3, then we could possibly end up with more people than we would want to interview. Because we could end up with 15, 20, 25 people. We may not agree on the top 3. So that next step that I would suggest is that once we get all of the top 3s, those who are duplicated, like several of us choose, then we put them on a separate list, and then we determine how many of the total that we are going to interview. I don't think we should try to interview everybody. That's going to take longer than one day.
Ms. Bullock,
Yes, sir.
I think we'll do it just like the School Board Association did with us. We'll put them up on the board, and who has the most votes will be your top 3.
Yeah, that's what I'm suggesting. Whether it's 3 or
I think that's what the perspective was in this room. So we're good.
I'm sorry?
That's what the general perspective was in this room. So we're good.
Except we can't hear y'all back there when you're talking softly or out.
Can you hear me now?
Yep. I hear you now very well, quite well. Thank you.
You're welcome. So did you hear about our perspective here? The general perspective was that of what I just mentioned. Okay.
I got that. Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure you heard it.
All right, so Reggie is making a motion. All right. So
I just make the motion for everything you just said. I'm gonna repeat all that. We start the advertising tomorrow.
I said,
We go through the 20.
motion by Mr. Silver, second by Mr. Sharp. All in favor say aye. All opposed likewise. Motion carried.
What's the deadline to give them to you?
That was Monday, right? We get them on Friday, so they haven't heard on Monday.
Via email, not a phone call.
let me just bring something to your remembrance. This office is closed on Fridays. I think that, Nellis. Just remember that.
Well, you can email them to Sarita.
She's off.
Yeah, everybody email them to Sarita so she'll have them. She can work on them that Friday afternoon.
You don't want you to work on Friday.
Or that Saturday afternoon. Or that Saturday afternoon.
You gotta talk to her.
She knows what I'm talking about.
I'll call her.
Her job 24/7. Okay, human resources. Ms. Privet.
Good evening again. I request your permission, well, I request your approval of the personnel recommendations action report that presented tonight in closed session.
So I have a motion by Mr. Sharp, second by Mr. Silver. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion carried. 2.2. Ms. Privet?
Check your bud.
If there was only one report, and that's the action report.
Okay. Curriculum and instruction, Ms. Melissa Nancy Smith.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes.
Good evening, Chairman Lamb, Superintendent Ellis, and board members. Monique Hargrove Jones and I will speak to you about Nash Rocky Mount Public School Remediation Jumpstart Summer Learning Program. The priorities that are addressed are high student achievement, which is priority 1, and priority 5, which is transparent organizational culture, effective use of district resources. Under legislation, the General Assembly approved earlier this spring the remediation and summer jumpstart funding provides resources to districts and charter schools for a supplemental summer learning program for those students who were negatively impacted by COVID-19. The Jumpstart program includes 7 required components that districts had to address when submitting their plans. I am happy to say that Nash County Public Schools submitted its plan on time and it was approved. The 7 components of every Summer Jumpstart plan included evidence-based resources, assessments and individual plans for students, support for our exceptional children, social and emotional learning supports, student-teacher ratios that were no less than 1:16 or smaller, family engagement, and transportation and nutrition supports. Monique Hargrove Jones will talk to you about the formula that was used to fund the program.
Good evening. In accordance with House Bill 1043, 50% to 100% of the funding received for the Summer Jumpstart program had to be used to provide reading interventions for students who were in grades 2 and 3 during the 2019-2020 school year and were not on track to meet year-end expectations based on reading diagnostic assessments completed prior to March 16, 2020. Of the money allocated for these rising 3rd and 4th grade students, 75% of the funds have to be expended prior to the beginning of the 2020-2021 school year on August 17. And 25% of these funds may be used to provide supplemental literacy support for these students during the 2020-21 school year if they're not on track to meet year-end expectations. The funds described in this section must be used prior to December 30th, 2020. The other option was to spend up to 50% of the money allocated to serve students in grades K1 and 4 in reading and to provide K4 math support. All of the funding for that option had to be spent by August 17th. For our plan, training was held for all Summer Jumpstart teachers on July 1st and July 2nd. These 2 days of training included sharing the purpose and goals of the Summer Jumpstart 2020 program, sharing remote work expectations, discussions about how to provide social and emotional support in a virtual setting, as well as ways to plan, deliver, and assess explicit remote instruction. Student days for the program are July 13th through July 30th. Today was our first day, and we are providing reading interventions for students who were in 2nd and 3rd grade during the 2019-2020 school year. Our rising 3rd and 4th grade students who scored at a level 1 or 2, which is in the 40th percentile or below, at the middle of the year on our reading diagnostic assessment. These students will be engaged in reading interventions from 1.5 hours to 2 hours daily, Monday through Thursday, using research-based instructional materials, including iStation materials from the Florida Center for Reading Research and Reading A to Z. Part of students' daily lessons also includes a time to address social emotional learning. Teachers work daily providing face-to-face instruction via Zoom and small group and individualized instruction based on data collected from their virtual interactions and from reviewing students' completed print materials and monitoring students' individualized online instruction. We know that the lack of devices and internet connectivity were barriers for some of our students during the remote learning period in the spring. So both devices and mobile hotspots were made available for all students participating in the program. Print materials are a component of this program for all students, and parents were given the option to have these materials delivered weekly. Some other materials purchased for this program were pencils, crayons, scissors, glue sticks, highlighters, composition notebooks, whiteboards, markers, fluency bookmarks, and leveled text. It is our goal to provide students everything they need to fully engage in the instruction plan. On this next slide, you will see our numbers. For the Summer Jumpstart program, we extended invitations to 281 second grade students, 430 third grade students, 22 students in our dual language immersion program, and 42 of our EC Extend 1 students, for a total of 775 students. We also were able to hire 54 teachers to serve these students. Thank you for your attention to this. We're extremely excited about this program, and we have received overwhelmingly positive feedback from the teachers participating in the program as well. I'd like to read to you, before we open it up for questions, one reflection from a teacher that she shared with us after the training. I just have an overall understanding of how to teach lessons virtually. I was unsure of how long and how to choose what was important. I also now feel like I know how to involve the kids virtually with using whiteboards, pencils for tappers, and other materials. This quote stood out to me because through this program, it is not only our desire to impact our students, we also hope to train teachers how to effectively deliver remote instruction. Do we have any questions?
Any questions from board members?
I don't have a question, but I'm impressed, and I think some of the people who worked on this project should definitely be at the table when we talk about this fall.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. CTE 2021 local application plan. Mr. Thomas.
Yes, sir.
Were any of these, I'm sorry, Mr. Thompson, hold on a second.
Okay.
Were any of these like newly created positions? Or these are folks that have been here anyway and are just getting retitled? Or?
This is just like the summer restart program that we run in the summer.
Okay, I just didn't know about the kindergarten.
Teachers applied. Dan Smith, I know you're on there somewhere, but I believe these were teachers that applied for these positions to be able to run the summer program.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if I understand the question.
So now we got a kindergarten transition facilitator. Is that what I heard?
This is the early learning coordinator.
Okay.
And
is that a new position?
It is not a new position. It is actually a position that we've had for years. It is actually our preschool coordinator.
So the same person?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm just making sure. It just sounds like a whole lot of new names, that's all.
Dr. Ellis, may I address that question, please?
Yes.
Yes, as we look at the direction that the state is moving into, one thing that the state is doing is looking at our preschool students and how those students matriculate through third grade. And the way to do that is to have one person that has a laser-like focus on ages birth to 8 years old, and that is Mrs. Hargrove Jones role. So it's a position that we've had since I've been in the district. The position was renamed to align to the state's expectation.
Okay, sounds good. I was just making sure. We just have a whole lot of names out there for people. I was just making sure we were good.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah. It's nice to hear from Mrs. Hargrove Jones. She's been working diligently, very hard to accomplish all this. And we want to say thank you for what you're doing in your new position, your new role. You're doing great work.
You're here.
Okay, Mr. Consul.
Yes, Ms. Nancy Smith, if you could stop sharing, please. Thank you. Okay, I just want to make sure everyone can see my screen now.
Yes.
All right, so good evening, Chair Lamb, Vice Chair Washington, Board, and Dr. Ellis. Tonight, I would like to present the process for the CTE local application plan, the priorities developed as a result of the plan, and lastly, the funding grants awarded for the 2020-21 school year. So what is the CTE local application? First of all is the funding application for CTE programs, that is state and federal funding. It also identifies needs and priorities for the CTE programs in our district. It ensures that CTE programs adhere to legislation related to state and federal funding. And it also identifies areas of focus that we want to focus on for the upcoming school year. So I want to start out talking a little bit about some various components. This year was a different platform for the CTE local application. It actually was online. The entire platform was different as far as the look and the way it was submitted. So first, these are the components of the CTE application. There's some performance data and indicators within one of those components. Also this year was the comprehensive local needs assessment, which we involved many groups, including our teachers, including our community members, including business and industry, departments in the central office that we relate, Nash Community College, who is our dual partner. So many groups with our comprehensive needs assessment to ensure we were making sure that we hit on the areas that we need the most within our CTE programs. Also included here are some narratives about our various parts of the comprehensive needs assessment. It also demonstrates the funding grants that we will be awarded. And then lastly are assurances that we will follow state and federal guidelines and laws. So doing a lot of great things in our CTE program, but we identified and we were very rigid on ourselves this year, along with the input that we received back from the local needs assessment. We wanted to ensure that our CTE programs are the best in around here and plus in our state. So ensure that happens, we have created 10 priorities for this upcoming year that we have gathered from the data from the local needs assessment and our local application plan. So starting off with the first one, as always, we want to continue to ensure that we have safety in our CTE facilities and labs. As you know, we have a lot of equipment, a lot of dangerous equipment, a lot of complex labs, and we want to ensure that that safety is there always. Next is that we want to create a robust career development plan for all students. And this is not starting just in high school. We are very intentional that this will start back into the elementary, 5th grade through middle, through our high school, so that students understand what careers are about. And by the time that they do reach high school, they will have a great idea of what various career plans look like. We want to actively recruit students from underrepresented areas. That's very important. This could include EC areas. This could include areas that are non-traditional in, for example, Our construction classes, if we are mostly male dominated, we really want to reach out to female students and ensure that they have the opportunity to look in those careers as well. Those are just some examples that we're really going to focus on for the 2021 year. Lesson design and delivery of our CTE teachers. Very important that lessons are designed, especially with us speaking of remote learning this year, that they're designed and they're delivered in a method that is best for students. We're going to be paying close attention to that as a priority this year. Credentialing, we feel like from the data we gathered, it is very important that students understand the credentialing opportunities they have within pathways and in courses as they're moving into the career of their choice, how they can come out of high school with credentials already so that they are gaining, for example, our ServSafe credential. Students that come out of high school and with the ServSafe credential, moving into a restaurant job or career, they can definitely make more money coming out of high school than a student that would just receive the job itself. So credentialing is very important for our students. Very important for us to advertise and market our CTE program so that not only our students and our parents understand, but also our community and our industries and businesses fully understand what we have to offer so that our students can have success once they leave and post-secondary. Retention and recruitment of our CTE teachers. We feel like this is very important to have quality CTE teachers so that our students can receive the best instruction. And so we're working on the retention and recruitment there. Also building our advisory board capacity to ensure that we align with labor markets so that we understand what's new in labor markets so that we can best give our students the knowledge and skills and various tools that are utilized in those areas so that they will be ready to move into a career. Also offering our students career and technical organizations. If you remember, this is like our FFAs. This is also like Skills USA, where our students go out and compete in the areas that they're most interested in so that they can go ahead and build those skills as well. And then lastly is reflections on our students' work-based experiences. Because if you remember me talking about the pathways for this year, in the end for a pathway major is actually the work-based experience. And so we want to reflect and have students reflect on those so they understand where they are, what skills they need to continue to obtain, and credentials. Also, building on these priorities are our middle school, because we cannot start this just in high school. We have to start this in middle school. So in order for that to happen, we have talked about this before, but our CTE exploratory in middle schools is going to be big. It's going to allow our students a lot of flexibility of understanding more than just one area. Say, for instance, in our middle school where we only related to health, this is actually broadening this for students so they have many areas that they get to explore before they get to high school. So middle school students will be exposed to areas aligned with CTE high school pathways. They're going to be able to explore through hands-on activities in career areas. They're going to be able to make important connections with corresponding CTE pathways in high school in order to lead the students to a possible career choice. They're going to be exposed to skills required to be successful in the various careers. And last but definitely not least, and one of our bullet points that we wanted to put out there was that we want to afford our middle school students and giving them access to professionals so they understand exactly what that career is about before they even move into it in high school. So I wanted to just show you this. This is not just a messy room. What this is that our unpacking of our Paxton Patterson exploratory labs, they arrived last week. You notice at the bottom, you see that there's some sheetrock that's on one of the modules at the very bottom in front of the cabinets. There's some door handles and locks that students will work on the construction piece of it. Up top, we have some culinary pieces. So students are going to have areas that they've never been able to explore before in middle school to prepare them for high school. And we're very excited for this. For the schools that did not receive a Paxton Patterson lab this year, just because of the funding piece, next year they will receive one. But this year we also have a exploratory courselet that we're doing with them, so that they still get the same value in the exploration, regardless if they have this lab or not. But the plan is by next year to have every school a lab. So this one's at Edwards Middle School. And then I just wanted to show you this. This is the crew from Paxton Patterson that was unpacking at Red Oak Middle School. And so this is the various equipment that comes in with it. So along with our local application becomes our funding. So this is what we will be funded for 2021. So for state months of employment, we have 691 months. State funding, which is called the 014 fund, we will be awarded $207,360. And for federal funding, which I've talked with you before about Perkins 5, that's 017 money. That comes out to $271,716 for the 2021 school year. So tonight I'm asking for your approval, or the superintendent, excuse me, is asking for your approval to move forward with the local application process in order for us to be able to ensure that we can obtain this state and federal funding for our CTE programs. And I will entertain any questions at this time.
Any questions from Mr. Thompson? I'll entertain a motion to approve the CTE 2020-2021 local application plan.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Sharp, second by Mr. Silver. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Now, Curriculum Associates Contract 6 through 8 Core Math Resource. Mr. Thompson.
Yes, sir. This tonight we're asking that a contract for Curriculum Associates. This is the terms that will allow us to continuation of our middle school 6 through 8 math core resource. We're asking for approval of this tonight for this contract.
Any questions, Mr. Thompson? I entertain a motion to approve the Curriculum Associates contract.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Sharp, second by Mr. Silver. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Thompson.
You're welcome.
Public Consultant Group Contract 6 through 8 ELA Core Resource. Mr. Thompson.
So this contract is the terms for the public consulting group. This contract allows for the continuation of our English language arts core resource, paths to college and careers in language arts. I'm asking tonight, or the superintendent's asking for approval of this contract.
Any questions for Mr. Thompson?
How much is this?
Yes, sir.
How much is this contract?
This contract is going to be $120,681.
Is that for the year?
That is for the year. Yes, sir. And this once again includes student journals with this one, because they work the program through a student journal book, which will also includes an online version of this for our remote learning as well.
How many students will you serve?
This will serve all of our middle schools, 6 through 8.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Thompson? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Real quick, if you read every one of these contracts, it still uses our old name.
So, okay.
We're still doing a contract where it says formerly known. It just makes a couple of references in there to Nash Rocky Mountain School.
I'm sure that will be cleaned up before the contract is signed. I'll entertain a motion to approve the public consultant group.
Motion.
Excuse me?
I'd like to make the motion.
Motion by Ms. Chavis. Second by Mr. Sharp. Second by Mr. Sharp. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, likewise. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Now with number 5, Jordan's Driving School.
Okay, so lastly, this contract is for Jordan's driving school at the Carolinas. This is for the terms of the Jordan Driving School at the Carolinas contract, which allows for continuation of driver's ed program for the 2021 year. The superintendent is asking for approval of this contract tonight.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Bullock to approve, second by Ms. Washington. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, likewise. Request to participate in research. For information only, Ms. Griffin.
We have one request for research that's been received, reviewed, and approved by the superintendent. This request came from the East Carolina University Department of Pediatric Medicine. They've asked Nash County Public Schools to participate in a study to assess child maltreatment and reporting in the switch to remote learning. And this research will be in the form of teacher surveys and interviews, no student contact. That's all.
This is for information only. Thank you. Technology, Mr. McQueen. Copy of contract.
Copy of contract. Our current MFP copier contract is with Toshiba. And we have been in contractual agreement with them for maybe over 10 years and a few contract renewals. So during this time, the Nash County Public School has experienced like many contentions dealing with customer service, device refresh, reliability, resiliency, and many other matters. This has caused our district to really lose faith in this vendor. Over the years, principals have continuously purchased printers and cartridges due to the unreliability of the service of Toshiba. So this has caused many lower counts per quarter, but has driven up the cost of other areas in our budget. So upon the contract expiration date, a copier committee was formed and we interviewed copier vendors, choosing the best one that fits the needs of our district. This committee included a principal, this is Allison Williams of Coopers, and testing an accountability coordinator, which is Ms. Robin Griffin, myself as the Chief Technology Officer, as well as the Federal Programs Director, Ms. Sheila Wallace, and the Chief Finance Officer, this is Ms. Jerry. We used a rubric that consisted of presentation, cost, dependability, and device management, customer service, and reputation. And after hearing all of the presentations, the committee compared the data given by the vendors, and we unanimously decided that Canon offered the best solution based on the cost and the customer service. And if you look at the selection, the figure below, you can see that this was initial pricing and then follow-up pricing by each of the vendors. However, the option that we decided to go with was the Canon option number 2. And so if you read there, that is a total cost of $160,000 per year, and that's at a minimum count of 3 million copies per quarter. And I would like to recommend, superintendent would like to recommend this item for board approval, and entertain any questions you have tonight.
Any questions for Mr. McQueen at this time?
We have enough paper to cover 3 million copies.
Oh, we just.
I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Sharp, second by Mr. Silver to approve the copier contract. All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carried. RUS grant application for information only.
All right, this is a Russ grant application. The Nash County Public Schools Technology Department has partnered with the Student Services, Mr. Leon Farrell and Jeannie Kerr, and curriculum instruction, which include Mr. Chad Thompson and Mr. Danny Kleiner, to pursue a rural utilities service grant. This grant is a federal grant that focuses on distance learning and telemedicine. Preliminary work has already been expanded and explored of relevance to our district needs. The RUS grant will be used to provide access to STEM courses, ensuring that our students are college and career ready. Expanding access to courses leading to industry certifications and skills, qualifying students for an affordable wage job after high school, and accessible professional development opportunities to staff without often prohibitive cost of travel and time spent away from classrooms. Rocky Mount High School would serve as a hub to provide these services to locations at 3 end-user sites, which is Northern Nash High School, Southern Nash High School, and Nash Rocky Mount Early College High School. Equipment will be purchased for identified classrooms and for the media centers at each school, and will include a combination of video conferencing systems and mobile systems. So this grant would benefit over 3,500 students, high school students at that, high school staff, and the approximately 96,000 residents of Nash County. So in the summary details, I've pretty much summed up what I said. And I have Jeannie Kerr that is on the line if she wants to kind of bring some clarity to this entire grant. She was very instrumental in helping with this. I mean, she really took the bull by the horn and took a lot of the weight. So Jeannie, I open the floor to you if you want to comment on this grant.
Well, I will just add that this is a way to use the telecommunications equipment to connect those 4 high schools so that students sitting in one classroom can be a part of a live lesson in another classroom or participate in the whole course. So this opens up a whole lot of STEM classes to all 4 high schools. What we have found in doing our research is that there were some courses that were offered at some of the high schools, not available at the others. And this was a way of just increasing the number of courses available to everyone in the district in these 4 high schools.
Any questions? I would like to submit this, superintendent would like to submit this for an informational item.
Okay, thank you. Technology funding device purchase plan.
All right, the Nash County Public Schools Technology Services will procure devices to accommodate the technical needs for remote learning, instruction, and related programs. After evaluation in several meetings, it has been agreed on that our greatest technology need is at the elementary level. We plan to purchase devices for our pre-K up to the 4th grade students. This will afford our great district the opportunity to provide every student with a device for remote instruction. So we combined funding allocations from both federal government and state PRCs, and with this combination, this whole process will be a success. So if you look at the figures below, you can see I kind of broke it out. The number of devices per funding source. And this is, I'm asking for the superintendent is requesting approval for the item presented.
Any questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve the technology funding device purchase.
I made that motion.
Motion by
Second.
Mr. L. Second by
Yes,
Ms.
second.
Chavis. Okay, second by Ms. Chavis. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. Motion carried.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
real quick, before we leave the technology group, I just want to thank Mr. McQueen, this team. I don't know if we realize, I think we do. They did a phenomenal job as far as for the technology piece and what's going on with it, especially when you looked at that grant for that RUS grant application. So man, that's kudos off to the team. That's a great job. It opened up a lot of venues for all of our high school students.
Excellent. Student services, Mr. Farrell. Power School online enrollment contract, information only.
Good evening, Chairman Lamb, Vice Chair Washington, Dr. Ellis, and members of the Board of Education. I come before you to present information on Power School online enrollment portal contract, strategic priorities, the priorities 4, 21st century tools and system, priority 6, engaged and connected community. Departments, people who are part of this particular department with this particular subject is myself and Rod Whitley of Student Services. The main points to be discussed is that the Power School enrollment portal is to be used for a more streamlined enrollment process of new and returning students. It would also allow a more systematic approach for increasing data managers' efficiency during the enrollment process. As it relates to COVID-19, it also provides the district with a safe and efficient process to engage families in the enrollment process during times of social distancing. It cut costs and it saves time. And it does this by freeing up data managers from excessive data entry, increases data accuracy, save family precious hours spent filling out forms by hand, and eliminate unnecessary printing and mailing costs from our district's budget. It also increases our student safety from a secure online perspective, where the process that collects high quality and accurate data that's configured to our unique district's requirement. It makes it easier for families to provide critical safety information, such as their medical condition and emergency contacts, so that our staff is prepared to serve all students' needs when it matters most. It improves resource management, allows the school district to operate more strategically and more efficiently to serve the entire school community by having vital information before school begins. Make the process easier for families. The platform is designed to make the student enrollment process easy and flexible. Families can enroll students on their time from anywhere. This simplified process removes barriers and promote equity, saving families time and frustration. It ensures secure, reliable, and accurate enrollment information, ensures that the online enrollment data is captured fairly, accurately, and securely. It's a seamlessly integrated registration and enrollment process within Power School. The fiscal implications, this is a 3-year contract beginning with the 2021 school year into the 22-23 school year. This year's implementation cost was set at $28,406.25. A payment amount of $35,425 per year for the following 2 years will be due to the company. This gives us a total cost over the 3 years of $99,256.25. The superintendent presents this contract service for information only. Are there any questions for me?
Question, Mr. Farrell?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. With Health Department School Nurses Contract.
Good evening again to everyone. Coming before you to present the 2021 contract for school nursing services. These are strategic priorities are priority 2, safe and orderly schools. Priority 5, transparent organization culture, effective use of resources. Main points: Nash County Health Department and Nash County Public Schools mutually agree on the importance of providing school nursing services to promote optimal health and well-being for all students. The General Assembly enacted the School Nursing Fund Initiative, which is known as SNFI or also SNFI, 7 years ago to help school districts in North Carolina as they strive to reach a nurse-to-student ratio that meets the nation and state recommendation of 1 school nurse to every 750 students. Nash County Public Schools' current nurse-to-student ratio is 1 to 789. Nash County Health Department will provide funding to the Nash County Public Schools to support 5 nationally certified school nurses who are 10-month employees. These school nurses are the employees of Nash County Public Schools. Nash County Public Schools will provide a detailed budget for expenditure of the funds to Nash County Health Department. And Nash County Public Schools will also ensure that the 5 school nurses employed under this contract remain in good standing with their licensure as a registered nurse with the North Carolina Board of Nursing. Fiscal implications, Nash County Health Department is providing a total sum amount of $250,000. That's $50,000 per school nurse. Money can only be used for personnel costs, salary, and fringe benefits. Continuing education costs per school nurse cannot exceed $750 per school nurse. The superintendent recommends approval for this contract service as presented.
Any questions from Mr. Farrell? Mr. Silver?
Mr. Farrell, would that nurse be a registered nurse or LP?
Registered nurse or either. No, excuse me, Mr. Silver. It's a registered nurse. I'm sorry, registered nurse.
Question.
Yes, sir.
The funds for this that you just explained, would that also take care of their security checks?
Security checks? I'm not sure what you mean.
They need a background investigation?
Oh,
yes, sir. But that doesn't come through that funding. That comes through the process. I think Ms. Privet is still on, that we have set up in HR. So anyone coming into our system goes through our total background check process. I hope I'm answering your question.
You did.
I will entertain a motion to approve the Health Department school nurses contract.
I move to approve the nursing contracts as presented.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Washington, second by Ms. Chavis. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, likewise, motion carried. Safety and facilities, Mr. Davis.
Evening. On April 16th, 2018, Nash Rocky Mount Public Schools entered into a contract with Beck Educational Services for custodial services. In August of 2019, I assumed responsibility for managing the contract. Through watching and documenting how the contract was being executed, I believe it is in the best interest of the district to terminate the contract and return the custodial services back under the full supervision of Nash County Public Schools. Fiscal implications. Nash County Public Schools will pay depreciation of equipment that was purchased by Beck Educational Services from unallocated capital outlay fund balance. Custodial salaries and materials will continue to be funded through the state. The superintendent recommends the board approve terminating the Beck Educational Services contract and direct staff to begin the process of transferring custodial duties back to Nash County Public Schools. Questions?
Any questions for Mr. Davis? Need a motion to accept the 2020-2021 custodial contract. So move. Motion by Mr. Sharp. Second by Ms.
Donovan.
Chavis.
Yes.
You, Ms. Washington, sound a whole lot alike to me tonight. Ms. Davis, I apologize.
That's all right.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, likewise. Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Thank you.
6, schedule of upcoming meetings and important dates. July 29th, 6 p.m. Call meeting for board interviews. August work session, Monday, August 3rd at 5 p.m. August board meeting, Monday, August 3rd at 7 p.m. Anybody else have anything to add to tonight's meeting?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to say that Governor Cooper is on call to make his announcement about reopening schools tomorrow at 3. I just got an alert.
Good. Thank you, Ms. Bo. Anybody else got anything to add? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr.
Second.
Sharp. Second by Mr. Chambers. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, likewise. Motion carried. Thank you.
Right, you doing good.